Hi everyone, my name is Gabby. I know we're reaching the end of the day and I'm standing between you guys and drinks, so bear with me. I'm an analytical consultant at Google and I was up until like 2 days ago working on automotive clients, so some of the biggest car manufacturers working here in the UK, and I work to basically provide insights and analytical solutions to help businesses thrive. And with me today I have Kunal.
Hello everyone, my name is Kunal. I'm part of the GCAS team at Google. I work as a data science consultant. Over the last few years, we have seen a lot of interest from our clients to know more about durable data science solutions, which can help in bid optimization. I'm very excited to speak about one such solution today in partnership with Gabby. Back to you, Gabby.
So now I work within the retail category. So it's been really interesting kind of seeing how this concept of bid optimization differs by different industries. But today I'll give you a little bit more of an example of how we've worked through those solutions between different verticals, such as the automotive vertical, as well as CPG and a couple other verticals. So just to kind of kick off, as online advertising becomes more and more automated, the KPIs that you ask machine learning algorithms to optimize to, and the data that you are sharing with these algorithms will become really, really important and will become more of a competitive advantage for everyone. So in thinking about this, the next step is how do you bid to that maximum customer value? And I think it's important to kind of start by just asking the question, who here thinks that all customers are worth the same to your business? No, perfect. So yeah, just to start off with that statement, you know, what bidding, the concept of bidding is that each customer is worth a different value. So the question is, how do we calculate that value for different customers? And with cookies going away, how do you do that in a non-kind of user level manner, which is what we're going to be discussing today. But first of all, just if we think of customers, say you have 3 different customers, customer 1, 2, and 3, and each of these brings a different value to your business. So let's say customer 1 brings $100, customer 2 brings $300, customer 3 brings $500. How do you actually calculate this? And then how do you take that the next level, the next step? And how do you put this into practice through bidding? So if we think about conversion bidding, each of these customers would be given the exact same bid. So no matter the different value that they bring to your business, you would be bidding $10 for each of these customers. Now, through value-based bidding, you have the opportunity to kind of amend your bid depending on the value that they're bringing to your business. So in this case, let's say you're going to decrease your bid from 10 to 5 for customer 1 because it's worth less to your business. For customer 2, you're going to keep it at $10. And then for customer 3, you're going to bring it up to $15. Now let's take an example of a car shopper. So let's say Cindy. Cindy is a car shopper. She has just recently expanded her family. She's moved outside of London, and therefore she wants to buy a car to take her kids to school. Because of all the recent government announcements, she said, I'm willing to go with an electric car, ready to embark on this journey, but she doesn't know where to start. It's complex. There's a lot of kind of research and discovery that goes on in the electric car category. So she goes to search and she searches for best electric cars 2024. She gets ads. She clicks on one enticing ad, and that then takes her to the manufacturer's website, where there are a lot of different actions that happen within this. So what I described before was what is the real reasoning for her wanting to purchase a car, which is that behavioral portion. What we're going to focus on today is from a conversion kind of action. Once you are on the car manufacturer's website, what can you do with that data? So let's say she goes and she looks at cars on the car manufacturer's website. She finds a model that she likes. Maybe she's comparing one to the other, looking at offers. She then decides, all right, this is the model that I'm going to go with. Maybe she downloads a brochure. Maybe she configures her car. She decides she wants a red car. And then she has her final model. So from there, she searches for a dealership. And from there on out, she actually goes to the dealership in person. So if you look at all of those different steps that are in blue, those are the online kind of touch points, but then the ones in gray are the offline touch points. So we tend to call this the phygital journey. It's a word that I hate saying, but basically it's the merge of the physical and the digital, and especially in the car shopping journey, which is such a long purchase journey, and it's quite complex and complicated because there is a really high price point that you're making, right? So you want to be able to go to the dealership, you want to be able to test drive the car in person. There's a lot of that still happens offline. So you kind of lose track of that data, right? Like once the person goes into the dealership and they decide I want to buy this car, the data actually sits within the CRM system of the dealership, and the manufacturer loses track of the data. So the question is, how can we use the data within that online touch point to be able to leverage it for bidding and for optimization purposes? So that's the question. The question is, how do we optimize our digital media to convert more car shoppers like Cindy? Because Cindy did exactly what the car manufacturer wanted her to do. Cindy went, she clicked through a lot of the different actions that they had online, and then she went to the dealership and she actually converted. She purchased a car. So it's a high-value customer. How do we find more of these high-value customers, and how do we assign the values to each of these customers so we can find more of those car shoppers like Cindy? Now let's meet Media Manager Mark. Media Manager Mark was tasked exactly with this question, and as we saw, there are the blue ones with the blue dots, which are the online touch points, but then as I said, you have the gray touch points, which he loses track of and loses visibility into. So what can he do? Well, Mark takes a step back and thinks of what are all the tools that he has up his sleeve. Now, thinking of kind of the measurement trifecta, as we like to call it, which you probably have seen throughout the day. You have incrementality experiments, you have MMMs, and you have attribution. Now, from a cookie perspective, MMMs are good to go. They're based on aggregate data. You have incrementality experiments, such as geo experiments, which are also based on aggregate data. So from a cookieless future perspective, Mark is good to go from MMMs and incrementality experiments. Then comes attribution, which we've kind of, I think, throughout the day touched on different ways in which you can go from measuring attribution at the cookie level to aggregate manner, but it is one of those steps in the trifecta that will need to change as cookies get deprecated. So in the same way that we're thinking about attribution and moving towards aggregate data, how can we use kind of that same approach, but for a bidding perspective, and to measure all of the online actions that are happening in order to assign value to them? So with that limited user level data, that has been exactly a blocker for a lot of different industries, as I was mentioning before. We have CPG, we have automotive, pharma and healthcare. These are just some examples of industries where we've brought this approach to. But personally thinking of the automotive industry, which is the one that I was working on, this is a journey that we have embarked on with a lot of our automotive clients, where they have the data, they have the floodlights on SA360, they have the ability to look at all of the conversions that are happening online, but they don't know how much it's worth to the business, right? For now, everything is just seen as every conversion has the same exact value. So a car configurator, a download brochure, a test drive, are all worth the same, and we know that they're not. So how do we actually bring that up a notch and calculate what is the value that each of these different conversion actions are worth? So if we take a step back and just first think of what does value mean? What is the definition of value? Now, the definition of value hinges on advertisers' ability to capture and to calculate that value at different times of the conversion. So you have actual, you have proxy, and you have predictive. Now, for data-constrained verticals, we talk about proxy valuing, which is what we're going to focus on today, but just to mention that there are different kind of stages in this life cycle, and it also depends not just on the vertical and how data constrained that industry is, but also on the maturity of clients. So if we think of actual, it means that the value is realized at the time of conversion, so you're actually bidding to profit to revenue. If we think of predictive, which is all the way on the other end of the spectrum, a predicted value is calculated at the time of conversion based on the signals that it is capturing. And then we have proxy. So going back to kind of what Roberto spoke about of complex and complicated, it is complex because there are a lot of different phases in a user's journey. And again, we don't have kind of that behavioral signals to play off of. However, it doesn't have to be complicated. We can start with something that is much more simple. We can make it uncomplicated and leverage proxy conversion values, which is what Kunal is going to talk about later on how do we actually calculate it. So from a proxy perspective, it just means that there is a general value that is understood at the time of conversion. So it's not 100% accurate. However, it gives you an idea of, from a conversion perspective, what are the conversions that are worth more to my business? Now, this would allow you to then calculate, as I was explaining before, based on all those different customer profiles, if conversion A is worth 100 or if conversion B is worth 300, for example. And in the past, we've done this with a lot of different target variables, so it is very much an art and science approach. So the science behind it can be kind of taken up to another level by adding on your business knowledge. So what that means is, for example, I've had some clients that have store visits enabled within Google Ads, and therefore we leverage store visits and bid directly to store visits. But in the absence of things like sales data, what we've done is also ran the science part of it with an aggregation of leads. So say, for example, in the auto world, if you think of the funnel, you're starting up all the way at the top with things like download brochure, but then test drives has a really low volume because it's all the way at the bottom of the funnel. So how do you ensure that you're still balancing volume and value? So in that case, what we did is we aggregated all of the lower funnel conversions and then did our modeling based on that. So it really just depends on your own business model and how do you, once again, just merge art and science. And lastly, why does value-based bidding matter? So this is just based on an aggregate analysis that we've done over time. But on average, the advertisers that do switch from TCPA to TROAS have seen a 14% increase in conversion value at the same or similar return on ad spend. So with that, I will pass it on to Kunal, which will speak about aggregate. It's called aggregate data modeling for VBB. It's a mouthful, but. Thanks, Gabby.
Great. So enter the solution that we want to talk about. We call this solution aggregate data modeling for value-based bidding. And this solution requires two data components. It requires your sales data and it requires your GMP data. And the output of this model would be high-value actions and values for those HVAs, which you could use in your VBB formulae, right? And we are doing all this while not using user-level data, rather using just aggregated data sets, which makes it more durable. So let's get slightly technical over here, and I'm going to talk about 5 steps to build such a model, to build aggregated data modeling. Step number 1 is gathering and joining the right data sets. So we have 2 data sets over here. Number 1 is offline sales data, and second one is GMP data. On the offline sales data, as Gabby mentioned, it can be your sales volume, it can be your sales revenue. In absence of those data points, we can also use something like, say, store visits. All of this data needs to be aggregated at daily level. It can be daily level or weekly level. You could also add in a geo dimension because that would give you more data points. And as we all know, more the data, better it is for modeling. On the right side, what we have is the GMP data. Now, GMP data is also grouped at the same granularity. We have the data with a date dimension and a geo dimension. And what we have over here is aggregated counts of online behaviors. So, what we typically refer as, say, micro conversions or mid-funnel conversions. any kind of soft conversions, right? So all of those mid-funnel conversions or engagement metrics that you want to add into your model, that's something which will go over here. So in the case of auto, for example, we have examples like download a brochure, locate a dealer, and so on. For industries like, say, CPG, wherein maybe we don't have as many HVAs defined. So for example, Cindy might not spend as much time during a gum purchase as compared to, say, an auto purchase. We could also use metrics like, say, number of clicks or video completions on site as one of the input features. So the key here is that our GMP data is comprised of optimizable media metrics, and those are going to be like the features within our data science model. So that's step number one. Step number two for us is after we build our data set, we create and fit a model. So our friend here is regression modeling technique, and what we aim to do is attribute the fluctuations in sales, which is our target variable, with the fluctuations in the input variables, which are our website behavior. Now, this might seem a little familiar to you because we are using similar modeling techniques like what we do in MMMs. The only difference here is that we are applying this to a different use case. So instead of attributing sales to media channels, we are attributing sales to optimizable media metrics, like your download a brochure or clicks and so on. So we fit a regression line between our target variable and our input variables. Like every AI/ML model, we definitely want to reduce our error. That's important. And we also want to test out the model performance on the holdout period. That would be an indication of good predictive power. That's again important for us because we want to build trust on the output so that we can use this in future. And now the complex things which our clients always say is, this is a great technique, but building such regression models is usually time consuming. We don't really have that kind of data science expertise within our team to build such solutions. So the good news here is that we have automated a base solution for this, and that's available as a collab. So that can be a good starting point for your team if you are interested in such an analysis, and we'll be happy to share that with you if that's of interest. Now we come to step number 3. So we have gathered our data, we have built our model, we are confident with the results which have come out. We want to infer results now. We want to identify what are the high-value actions which come out from the model. And what we are really looking for is positive and statistically significant coefficients here. So let's take an example. How do we interpret one such coefficient, right? So we are having download a file as one input feature, and the coefficient which came out for it is 0.13. So the way we interpret it is like for every incremental download a file conversion which our ads will generate, downstream will be contributing to an additional 0.3 future vehicle sales, right? So that's the way we'll read this coefficients. An important element at this particular point is to ensure that the features which have gone into model and have come out as HVAs, they're tagged as a GA4 conversion or like a campaign manager floodlight, because we'll be needing them to access them in the next step when we get into the activation phase. Now, step number 4 is then activation. Across Google media buying platforms, we can do value-based bidding, say in DV, Google Ads, or search ads. And there are some nuances to implementation. But what we are really looking for is to create a formula with the high-value actions which came out and the value and the coefficient values which came out, right? So here's an example how it will look like in, say, Goal Builder. So we have the floodlight conversions named, and we have the weights that came out, again, as part of input over here. And once we are ready with this, we can assign the bid strategies to our campaigns, and they will start serving to maximize the high-value actions which have been identified. And finally, downstream, we'll expect that it will have impact on the sales because That was our target variable to start with. And finally, we are on the last step now, which is to measure success. So once we have the HVAs in the media buying platform, so we can also use it to estimate revenue from the model to enable sales attribution. So that is also helpful, because not only is this unlocking value-based bidding, but we're also able to use it for optimizing budgets, with ROAS estimates. That's like a side benefit of this analysis. But when it comes to testing specifically, we do recommend taking an experimentation approach. So the desired methodology can be like an A by B test or pre-post test. It really depends upon what you're comfortable with. But the objective of the test would be to prove an increment in the lift in ROAS within our experiment arm as compared to the control group bidding strategy, which would be probably our BAU bid strategy, right? A friendly reminder while you're approaching all of this is, think about it with an experimentation mindset, with like an iterative way of thinking, because it does require maybe some iterations to get it right. And that brings us to the end of our presentation. I would just like to recap some of the key highlights of ADM for VBB. Number one, what we saw is this is a durable technique. This is based upon techniques like MMM, which have been there, time and tested. We are just using it for solving a different problem statement. Number two, from Google's side, we have used this approach for multiple clients, and we have seen great results. Last I saw it was 16 internal case studies. So it's definitely a tried and tested approach. This technique is efficient, not only on the model build side, because we have an automated collab, which we're happy to share with you. So if you have the right data, you can move from data to insights in a matter of minutes, right? But also when it comes to activation, you saw that, I took the output from the model and directly went into the buying platforms, assigning values over there. So it's very efficient in that format. If you think about, say, a user level model, over there, once you have the scores for every user, you'll have to build like a pipeline to put in those scores. There's a lot of data engineering that also needs to get into it. Finally, this is a cross-platform solution. So not just you can do it within, say, SA360, Google Ads, DB360, but also if it's Google agnostic. I mean, if you have any other buying platform wherein you have the option to have such advanced bidding strategies, you can use such an aggregated methodology to assign values over there. So that's from our side. I would definitely request all of you to consider this solution if you haven't already. And if you have any questions, your partners at Google and InfoTrust are happy to help you. Thank you.